Hey sis, welcome back to Black Girl SOS. It's your girl Snobby, and today we're gonna talk about how some of you motherfuckers should have been left behind. Like comprehension levels are slow, and a lot of you are okay with like just not being smart, and that shit is weird and offensive to me. Here's the thing. So I just watched Judas and the Messiah. Um, the Black Messiah. First of all, amazing movie. Well done, everybody. Just wow. I mean, I was overwhelmed. I'll tell you right before I get to any spoiler alerts for anyone who hasn't seen the movie so that you will have the opportunity to turn off the pod. I don't want to ruin it for anybody. And by ruin it, I just mean ruin actually having the experience of watching the movie. Think we all should know how the movie ends. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you don't know how the movie ends, then I'm talking about you. Then you're the people I'm talking about in this episode if you don't know how the movie ends, right? Um, and by that I mean we all know that Fred Hampton is murdered by the FBI. If that's the first time you've heard about, if that's the first time you heard anyone say, or that's the first time that your brain has registered that Fred Hampton was assassinated by the Federal Bureau of Investigation of these United States, you're amongst the people that I'm talking about, and some of you motherfuckers should have been left behind. So par for the course. Movie comes out, a black movie at that, about a historical prominent black figure, and the socials are going social, and I'm gonna scour. I'm gonna scour. I'm. This is who I am. I'm reading articles and um, by the people who made the movie. I read a great article. I'm not the hugest fan of Complex, if I'm being honest, but they did a phenomenal job with this article of the Lucas brothers, and they are from whom we got this movie. And just I'm watching all these interviews with Daniel Kalua. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. Kaluuya. Anyone who knows the proper pronunciation. I mean, I've heard it, and for some reason, I still the auditory and the oratory are not, they're not syncing yet. We're working on it. But honestly, the more I watch his interviews, the more I just adore this man. Just love. Um, but I sat in on an interview with some of the people that were involved in this movie. Dominique, who plays Fred Hampton's wife, um, one of the costume directors on the movie, and Chairman Fred Hampton Jr. So I, I've really immersed myself in what is Judas and the Black Messiah. And all it's really done is prove to me that a lot of you motherfuckers lack comprehension. Like, you do not comprehend, and I don't understand. I even asked this question very recently on Twitter. I said, I said, I need to know when comprehension stopped being a thing, because no one, people really don't comprehend what they read. Y'all know this is gonna be a blue book moment. We about to get into it today. We're about to get into it. So as I was dragging and saying, why don't people comprehend? When did people stop comprehending? I also follow that tweet up, par for the course for me. I said, y'all can't convince me that the No Child Left Behind Act worked. It didn't. A lot of you motherfuckers should have been left behind. this did not work. Okay, this act did not work. So, for those of you who are not familiar with the No Child Left Behind Act, really quick. 2001, W, which is Bush number two, signs. It's an upgrade to a previous education policy, but essentially the point of this policy is to one, tie monies to compliance and heavy sanctions to performance. So the concept, the marketing of No Child Left Behind is we're going to pour this money into poorly funded and poorly testing, or not testing, but poorly funded districts, disenfranchised districts. We're going to pour these monies into the district to ensure that these kids are getting an equitable opportunity to their more privileged counterparts, right? So we don't need to put money into we don't need to put as much money into these districts because these districts uh, also have private monies, right? But these districts that are predominantly in poor communities, communities of color, they need much more money because these kids are not doing as well academically. And we know what that translates to over the life of an adult, right? So we're not going to drag that out. The way it's implemented is no state has to comply with No Child Left Behind. You don't have to. If you don't comply, though, you don't get access to the funding. Essentially, you need to comply because there's no state that doesn't have districts that need these monies. How it's effectuated or how it's gauged to ensure that it's actually effective is based on testing, based on standardized testing. So between, I think I know it's elementary school, elementary, junior high school. So during those grade years, the students need to be tested and they need to hit a certain scores. They need to hit certain scores on the test because the test scores are going to be um, they're going to be analyzed for individuals, and then they're going to be analyzed for racial demographics, and then they're going to be analyzed for districts. And so if you're not making these marks, then these very heavy sanctions come down on your district. That led to teaching for testing as opposed to teaching people how to learn. So we've always had standardized testing. As long as I've walked the earth, which is now 41 years, we have always had standardized testing. I could not tell you any portion of my educational life where standardized testing was not an absolute part of that. And what I can tell you, the difference between when I was in primary school and junior high school versus when I started teaching is the style of teaching and what is taught and what happens on off times. So when the students are not in school, the style of teaching when I was in school was teaching for the purposes of me learning. The style of teaching when I became an educator was focused on teaching that exam because they needed to pass that exam. Right? That exam is tied to both sanctions and money. We don't want sanctions, we do want money. We need those grades. So we went from teaching for the purpose of ensuring students are learning to teaching for the purposes of them passing an exam. When I was in school, comprehension was a regular activity. I want to say forced activity, um, because I can't think of a better way to put it. Um, Mandatory. That's the word I'm looking for. It was a mandatory activity. Wasn't optional. So if I got called on in class and I didn't know the answer, I couldn't say I don't know. I would have to think my way through it. Like, I mean, literally, this was my entire life in school. This is what school has always looked like for me. I can think as far back as first grade in 1SP, which was the smart class. Even though it's kind of crazy to reasonably deduce how smart a first grader is before they get there, but nevertheless, always the more they were accurate about me, so it doesn't matter. For the purposes of this example, they were correct about me. But Miss Ford, my first grade teacher, who I still love and adore, I think top tier, amazing black woman. Um, Also, there's the fact that I have black educators, but we'll touch on that another time. Um, I remember very vividly, she would tell us to do this thing where she would go reach up in the air, grab your thinking cap, put your thinking cap on, and we would have to think our way through the response. So it wasn't like, oh, you could say I don't know, and then just sit down and get and you know what, I'll spoon feed you, which I found to be more of the case when I became an educator. When students didn't know, especially when I moved from junior high school to high school, that there was no forced comprehension engagement. Like you didn't have to try to figure it out. You could say, I don't know. And then I don't know would somehow cue the educator to point you in the right direction. In some instance, in the best instance, point you in the right direction. In the worst instance, spoon feed you the response or the answer rather than having you talk yourself through the problem. And I'm just like, yeah, this is a very different approach. And then finally, um, the out of school component. When and I'm not talking like homework, right? I'm talking about like when we're out of school for large portions of time. When I was in school, when we went out for Christmas break or for Thanksgiving break, Easter break, when you got those week long fucking holidays that you lived and died for when you're little. Um, We got these big ass homework packages. Honestly, these shits were more brolic than like regular school packages. I was like, who is responsible for this vacation pack? Because this shit is aggressive. We had those close connection books, which was key key when I tell you I mention close connections regularly, those people should sponsor me. Okay, that is how often I talk about it and bring it up because it was such a key component in keeping comprehension as a mandatory requirement even when you were out of school. So we had the big math packet, we had the science packet, social studies packet, you had the English packet, which was essentially close connections. And why I harp on close connections in particular is because it close connections was like literary algebra, right? It's funny. I've seen very recently, often people posting. I'm this many years old, or I'm an adult, and I still haven't used algebra, and I'm like, you might be the people I'm talking about because you don't realize that you do use algebra. You may not use the mathematical sense of algebra, but you do use the concepts that you learned in algebra because the concept is solving for x, it's solving for the unknown. Nevertheless, always the more. I'm not. I'm gonna try really hard to stay on topic because, baby, y'all stress me out with this lack of intelligence that y'all are okay with. Um, Anyway, so like I was saying, close connections is like the literary version of algebra because you need to solve for what's missing based on what you've read. Based on what you read, you have to think yourself through what is a logical next sentence? What's a logical next word? What's a logical next train of thought to what you're reading? You are still forced to do the comprehension exercises outside of school. Fast forward to when I became an educator. I'm gonna be honest. I didn't even see a lot of vacation packs. I seen very, very few. I seen very few schools actually give out holiday homework. Um, Most of them weren't the public schools, and additionally, they were focused on test prep. We were still teaching the test and not teaching anything else, right? And then people wonder why motherfuckers don't know anything. Like they don't know how to learn because they haven't been taught to learn. They don't know how to comprehend because they have not been taught to comprehend. Comprehension is an activity you have to do regularly to stay good at it. You know what I'm saying? It's like a foreign language. If you don't use it, you will lose it quickly. And we live in a very microwave society, so it's super, super easy to lose it. So I say all of that just to set up what the No Child Left Behind Act is for those who don't know. Coming back to this phenomenal movie, sorry, allergies, but by now y'all should be used to me and my allergies. I promise I'm not on drugs, it's just my allergies. um, so to come back to the movie, I'm let me find this screenshot. So I I'm reading social comments about I'm reading comments about the movie, and one comment was they should have went more into Fred Hampton's life. That's not the title of the movie is Judas. Literally, first word, Judas and the Black Messiah. So you know what the context of the movie is about. It's about the person who was an informant who essentially got Fred Hampton killed. You know what the movie's about. It's about that guy. That's the guy we're talking about. That's the guy we got to keep a fucking eye on. They made it clear for us when they titled the movie Judas. Now, maybe you ain't a friend of the Bible, to each his own. But Judas is a very commonly used phrase. So even if, you are not a friend of the Bible and you don't know the story of Judas, you've heard it before. You know the context in which it's used, right? Or Google it. If you don't know, Google it. Like, yo, why they calling this shit Judas and the Black Messiah? What they talking about? Who the fuck is Judas? I don't know no fucking Judas. Google it. That was a perfect opportunity to Google Judas and let the math for you. So now you understand that we are keeping our eyes on Judas. We watching this motherfucker. He done did some shit. That's why it's the first name in the title. Judas and the Black Messiah. It's a very clear. This story is about that relationship and how we got to where we are as far as Fred Hampton no longer being with us, right? But alas, people are talking about, oh, they could have went, they didn't really touch on his relationship um, with, I, I can't remember her name, Jesus Christ, with his wife. Um, that's not what the story's about. That's not to say that there isn't a story there. That's to say that this story is not that. It's not that. And no one gave you that impression. Did you watch the trailer? The trailer didn't give you that impression. Did you read the title? The title didn't give you that impression. So you lead me to believe you simply don't know how to comprehend. I was having a conversation with someone who, a good friend of mine, had me on. Um, I want to say his podcast. I'm not sure if that's available yet or whatever the case may be. But this came up with him also. We were talking about, definitely we're gonna watch this movie. This movie's gonna be amazing. We really can't wait to see what these, what everyone's done with this. And I was sharing with him, just some of the immersive experiences I've had in reading the movie, and he goes on to say, when I first saw the opening line of the trailer, the opening scene of the trailer, I was just like right then and there, I knew I was gonna watch it. He said, but as I watched the rest of the trailer, I just was like a little disheartened that that they're showing how this guy is a traitor and how he did all this stuff, and I was like, but that's that's a true story though. One, that's a true story. I was like, two, that's a story that needs to be told. Three, it's called Judas and the Black Messiah. What did you think we were going to be talking about? Like, what did you think they were going to be addressing? And I'm just like, yo, people are struggling. People are really struggling to comprehend that this particular story is about this particular relationship, heavily focused on this particular man's actions and how it affected this particular man. And I'm just like, to me, this is, red, yellow, blue. This is primary, extremely basic. I don't understand why people's brains are not registering all of these really, really basic concepts. Like, right? Like, why is the struggle persistent? But it is. The struggle is persistent. And I want to, let me get this, because this tweet in particular really let me know that the stupid levels were a bit high. They were a bit high. They're definitely not low. They're not low at all. What happened to this tweet? So she says there is something sorely missing from Judas and the Black Messiah. I want to see the complexity of Fred Hampton's story, the love story between Fred and Deborah. Deborah, thank you. I couldn't think of her name. Between Fred and Deborah, the ways in which the BPP loved on our community. There's a white gaze here that is hard to watch. No, sis, there's a gaze over your brain and it's difficult to read. You want to see the complexity of Fred Hampton's story. First of all, I'm almost positive there is a Fred Hampton story that she can watch, but there's absolutely a book she can read. That I know unequivocally. There's a book she can read that'll absolutely give her that. You want to see the love story between Fred and Deborah. I don't know if that story's actually been done, but hey, pick up a pen. Pick up a pen. Pick up a pen. Some of the best writing advice I've heard thus far, as I venture back into my love and journey with writing, is to write your favorite story that hasn't been told. Pick up a pen. You pick up the pen. You want to see that story, you haven't seen it, pick up a pen. You tell it. You do the research, you pick up a pen. That one, Deborah is still very much alive. She doesn't use that name anymore. She has another name, and that name I can see it in my head, but again, I don't know how to pronounce it. Told you when when, when I have to learn new names that are not just indigenous to my ear, I have to practice it like everyone else. Take it in, take in your auditory until you can nail it oratory, right? So we're still working on that. Um, she wants a story about the way the Black Panther Party loved on our community. I can assure you, there's plenty of content out there about that. Plenty. But there's some particular version of that content that you want to see that you haven't seen. Pick up a pen. Pick up a pen. The white gay shit. Here's why that completely. I was like, this woman is she doesn't comprehend, right? Because she doesn't know that this movie is about what this movie is about. It's not about all those other things. This is also what I'm talking about when I say people don't comprehend that somebody's whole story means that there's multiple stories in there, right? There's multiple chapters to that book. Is this the entirety of Fred Hampton's life? Hell no, of course not. But we never said we were telling that whole story, or they never said they were telling that whole story. They said they were telling this portion of his story. That's it. And how people can't comprehend that befuddles me. But to say that there's a white gaze on this very, very black movie that Chairman Fred Hampton Jr. and his mother played a very active role in, and I mean a very active role. First of all, it was vetted with the family. Um, the stars spent quality time with the family. I watched an interview, and actually, if you watch this movie on HBO Max, as opposed to a theater, yes, there are theater options. If you watch this on HBO Max, there are other interviews after the movie. Available for you to watch, and you should get into those. Those are pretty good. So on there, there's an interview with Chairman Fred Jr. and Daniel, and they talk about how when they first met before they started filming, like Chairman Fred Jr. like took Daniel to the hood of Chicago. Like when I say this was a really immersive um, approach to making this movie, and the family was heavily involved in it. It befuddles me that is very public information. And someone would say this movie had a white gaze on it. Black filmmakers, black directors, black actors. Um, this shit was blackity black. It was a blackity black, blackity black, black. The director is black, right? I hold on, I forget who directed this. I know the filmmakers are black. The guys that did the screenplay are black. I want to say the director's black too. I'm almost 3,000% positive. If I'm wrong, anyone feel free to correct me, but I'm almost 3,000% positive. This is like one of the blackest movies in a long time. Okay, and it's definitely the blackest movie of 2021. Everyone's black, blackity black, black, the L black, and her take on it is that there's a white gaze. And I'm just like, how, Sway? How? How? What are you not comprehending about this is just this piece of that man's story? Because she can't comprehend that the purpose of this movie is not to tell the whole story, she sees it as a white gaze. Let me tell you something. There is a serious lack of self-awareness and self-assessment that a lot of people suffer from. And this is a very typical version of it, that when you don't comprehend, you think that someone else or you think something external is the problem. No, the problem is that you don't comprehend. This is a very simple issue. You don't comprehend. Um, so in the interview that I was talking about that they did for that they did with Complex, they talked about wanting to tell this story, this really particular story, in the same way that the Conformist was done, and it's a real particular POV, and like the emphasis is on co-intelpro, which is basically having an insurgent, and I mean an informant, insurge themselves into infiltrate themselves into an organization or into someone's life and have that person be the source of information, right? And so they were really clear on the way they wanted this story told. They were really clear in just kind of the cinematic style they wanted to mimic. They even talked about the fact that when they were trying to sell this movie, because if you're familiar with the Lucas brothers, they're kind of known for being like stoner comedians. It's like that half baked energy, and this is a really serious story. It's a really serious cinematic piece, and their approach that they had for it, that they were really particular about wanting. Um, Studios just couldn't see them doing that. Like they're like, nah, y'all not even about this life. But shout out to them for proving them wrong. Um, and they said, we just don't think that people took us serious enough to do this kind of cinematic work. um but here we are. They got with the right director, and they were able to collaborate and bring us really some phenomenal work. But I say all that to say, um people are trying to manufacture what this movie was supposed to be instead of understanding what the movie is. Basic comprehension. Very basic comprehension. If this movie had been entitled The Autobiography of Fred Hampton, and that was the story they gave us, I would co-sign. I would co-sign. I'd be like, well, I mean, did you try? Did because is this it? Is that all you got? Like, are we talking about Buddy a lot? No, the movie is Judas and the Black Messiah. This is the relationship that they're exploring, and I can't get over the many many ways people can't comprehend that very simple thing. Again, some of you motherfuckers should have been left behind. You should have been left behind. Because this didn't work for you. This didn't work for you. Spoiler alerts are coming now, because of course I have to touch on the movie, because here we are, right? Because we're talking about it. That's what spawned me really having to address people not having good comprehension skills, and how shitty the American education system has gotten. I mean, honestly, it went from bad to worse. It went from No Child Left Behind to social promotion, which is fucking worse. So you're not smart, but hey, you didn't cause any problems in class, so we're gonna promote you. No, you need to learn what you need to learn in the third grade so that when you get to the fourth grade, you have enough base to add to it. You know what? I'm not even going to do this. I'm not going to do this. I swear. I'm not going to do this. I will have a whole other education topic. Another time, I'll get some of my educator friends on here. We'll really get into the shits of how our communities are suffering from these lackluster, subpar educational policies. I promise to do that because I'm getting more enraged the more I think about it. But again, all right, so this is the point where you need to turn off the podcast if you have not watched Judas and the Black Messiah and you don't want any spoiler alerts. And if this is where we are parting ways, I thank you so much for joining me. Until next time, you have a good one. Don't forget www.frantsnobby.com and follow us on Instagram at BlackGirlSOS. The girl is with a Y, not with an I. Oh my God, my allergies are really bad today. And for those of you who are staying with me, let's get into this movie, right? So the FBI agent said, and I'm telling y'all, I jumped off my couch in a fit of motherfucking rage. A fit of fucking rage. The FBI agent that has Lakeith's character, what's his name? Fuckboy Bill. Has Fuckboy Bill infiltrating the Black Panther Party. He says to the FBI agent says to Fuckboy Bill, they can't race to equity. What? They can't race to equity? That was the most audacious white shit I had heard since about earlier in the day when they acquitted Cheeto. Like, huh? Sir, we're operating at a deficit. At a deficit. Our race to equity is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And if we don't race, we're gonna die. We are dealing with real shit due to inequity. We're dealing with food deserts. We're dealing with poor housing. We're dealing with voter disenfranchisement. We are dealing with inequities in pay. If we don't race to equity, we could die. Like our life is on the line. And the Black Panther Party was not doing anything but trying to help it's people and people similarly situated to find food, to find jobs, to have help with education, to create community, to get good housing. And you consider a race to equity criminal enough that we need to kill this man. Wow. 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 When my mind was blown. My mind was blown. And not because I don't know that this is the way white America feels about us. I know this. I'm very conscious of it. I live a very, very conscious life where I'm always alert to that fact. Hearing it orated in that way sent me. Baby, I was enraged. I was like, oh, I'm about to fuck somebody up. I'm about to throw this TV. Well, I ain't about to fuck my shit up. But somebody about to get their ass kicked. I mean, it really, really pissed me off. And you think about it, this is over 50 years later. This is over 50 years later. And we had those exact same problems. Those exact same problems. When I say our race to equity is a marathon, baby, I'm not exaggerating. This is why we got to move with with expedience, and we got to move intentionally, and we gotta be overzealous about needing equity, about demanding equity, about commanding equity. This shit is not a game. This shit is not a game. It's 50 years later. 50 years later, we still have the exact same issues. We have issues with voter disenfranchisement. We have issues with food deserts. We have issues with pay equity. We have issues with housing. We have issues with inequities in education. We have the exact same issues. The exact same issues, baby. That shit, that had me. I that was that let me know that either, and it's not an either because I know the answer, right? But as I was talking myself through my rage, I was like, these motherfuckers really don't comprehend what the black experience is and why there's such an urgency and a race, as they put it, to equity. And as I continue to talk myself through it, I got to the same conclusion I always get to. They get it. They just don't give a fuck. They get it. You do not get it. You do get it. You just don't give a fuck. You just don't give a fuck. Um, there was another scene where he's when they think that he's a rat, and he is, and they're talking about, and he's telling them, how he used to steal the cars, pretend to be FBI agent, and but not carry a weapon, and basically, what he says is that a badge is scarier than a gun. He's com- committing grand theft auto under the guise of being a cop, of being an FBI agent, excuse me, because a badge is much more dangerous than a gun. Wow, wow, wow. 50 years later, same shit, same shit. But people can't comprehend the reason the Black Lives Matter movement is important, but people can't comprehend the reason people are yelling, defund the police. You can comprehend it if you want to. You can sit down, read some things, understand what people are talking about, understand how the badge being more frightening than a gun is problematic. Right? You can, why wouldn't you be able to comprehend that? But what's the deficiency that you're having that doesn't allow you to comprehend that? Another thing that I thought was just really, really interesting in regards to this movie, and I'm gonna wrap it here because I don't want to talk too much about the movie. I would love to maybe do a live with someone, maybe take this movie to the black table, and have like some conversation and some dialogue live about it. So I don't want to overdo it on the pod, but this is the first time that I've seen Dominique Fisher or Fishburne. She plays Deborah in the movie, and she's in a lot of things. Really talented young black actress. I believe she's out of Brooklyn. And it's the first time that I have seen her. It's Fishback. Her last name is Fishback. Um, it's the first time I've seen her play her age, like seen her play an adult role. She looks very young, which is, on brand, black don't crack. And so she often plays young roles. It's the first time I've seen her as an adult woman in a movie. And why it struck me as very interesting is because last week when Marie and Malcolm came out, or, not last week when it came out, but when the trailer for Marie and Malcolm dropped, and everyone saw that it was obviously an adult movie. It's about a couple. If you haven't seen it, check it out. But that Zendaya is the lead in it, and she is playing her age. She's an adult woman, but no one's ever really seen her play her age. She generally plays a younger girl because she looks extremely young, very akin to Dominique Fishback. So I thought these were very interesting similarities because they were handled very differently. Social media, mass media, and mainstream media went up. They were enraged that Zendaya would be playing, this adult woman having this adult relationship, and this is not appropriate. He's a grown man. Well, she's a grown woman. They cowered to protect her as if she was a young girl, right? Ridiculous as fuck because she's a grown ass woman. But follow me. When we got the trailer for Judas and the Messiah, there was not that same energy for Dominique Fishback, who also has predominantly played children's role, like not children's role, but like young teenagers. I mean, like older teenagers or young teenagers. She plays youthful roles. I've never seen her play an adult. This is literally I'm not saying she hasn't, but this is literally my first time seeing her play an adult. And I want to say it's the first time in any project this large that she's played an adult. And there was not that same energy. There was not that same rush to protect her, right? Because we've only seen Daniel play his major movies. He's a grown ass man in all of them. Black Panther, um, Get Out. Like he's a grown man and grown relationship functioning as a grown ass adult. So that is how we perceive Daniel, because that's the way we've seen him presented. We've only seen her presented youthfully. There was no rush to protect her though. Nobody was up in arms. These trailers dropped about the same time. About the same damn time. These movies came out a week apart. A week apart. That energy was very different. We got to rush to protect the light skinned girl. We've got to rush to protect the girl with the long hair. We've got to rush to protect. I want to say, um, yeah, I'm almost positive. Let me look it up real quick before I misspeak. Because this is something I don't want to misspeak on at all. I want to be quite clear on this. Let's protect the biracial girl who really gives us a little more comfort because she looks light skinned, right? Her skin is lighter, her hair is longer. We know she's got a white mother, a white parent. Yeah, her dad is the black one. And we got to protect her. Like, she should not be engaging in anything with this grown man. Like, what kind of movie are you guys putting out? This is inappropriate. But the dark skinned girl, the dark skinned girl who's wearing her hair in a fro in the movie, and often has her hair in braids when she plays her youthful characters. The dark skinned girl should be all right. We don't need to cower to protect her. She's fine. She's fine. I mean, I could not find textbook um a more textbook definition of the way black women, dark women in particular, are are victims of adultification. Because essentially, them not feeling a need to protect her is because they feel she can protect herself. She can handle an adult situation. She'll be fine. You know, there's this there's this need to protect women that they sexualize, women that they want in a sexual way, women that are appealing to them in a sexual way. And when the women are not, there's no need to protect. There's no want to protect. Like, we're still doing this shit. Like, this shit is still happening. Like, there's so many fucking layers to the bullshit that's happening to black women all the fucking time. Like, I was just hella aggy as I watched it unfold. Now, honestly, like I said, I thought it was ridiculous that they were all up in arms about Zendaya playing a grown woman. She's grown. She's grown. She's been in Hollywood her whole life. She might be growner than me for all the fuck I know. I don't know, sis, personally. But to say, she's probably been exposed to more things in life that I may have been exposed to at her age because of just her having access. Because she young, rich, and famous. But I just found it really interesting that there was this mass call to protect her. And no one even thought twice about Dominique. Just very interesting. Very, very interesting. The way, these things keep coming up and the way they overlap, and the way comprehension skills allow you to see the bullshit from a mile away. It's there. You only need to look. But anyway, like I said, I'm not gonna get all the way into the movie. That's something I would love to do on a live. I will probably take it to the black table, probably with one of my good sis, and and engage with whoever logs on to the live. That being said, as always, I appreciate you rocking with me. Please, please, please actively listen, read more often, and write. And I don't care if it's just a journal or like you do prompt writings, whatever it is, because these things are going to help build your comprehension skills. These are the ways you build your comprehension skills. And good comprehension skills are going to help you navigate life much more intelligently. You won't be doing shit like putting Gorilla Glue in your hair because you know to read some shit first before you spray it. You know what I'm saying? Just shit like that. Just shit like that. You haven't already copped your Black Girl SOS merch, and make sure that you do that at www.brandsnobby.com. You can also find that link in the bio of my Instagram page, and that is a Black Girl SOS on Instagram, girl with the Y, not with an I. And until next time, y'all have a good one.